Happy Monday, everybody!
Hi, happy Monday. What's up, everybody?
How is it going?
Yo, how was your weekend, Marone?
It was pretty good. Lots happening, things going on, gaming, uh,
Gaming?
developing a film.
Cool.
That's happening, and then outside of that, it's just been spending time with Kika before she leaves for Portugal to go home for a little bit.
Yeah, good stuff.
What about you?
Streaming, played some Fortnite yesterday, which I haven't done in a while. And there's a new update that everything can be on like fire. Like if there's an explosive or like an explosion, like the trees start burning and like the ground starts burning. And I just did not expect that. And it was way more like Mission Impossible than I expected.
Wait, so can you like engulf a lot if you wanted to?
Yeah,
can you,
like a lot.
Troll the map as a fire starter?
Probably. You could probably just like set off a bunch of like flare guns and like put like a whole section on fire if you wanted to.
That's
It's
amazing.
wild.
Is this now a feature like within like esports events as well? Like can people do this?
I don't know. I was wondering how that works for esports events. Also with cars in Fortnite, you can run people over. And I'm like, what are the pros gonna say about this? Because if like a truck just rams into you, you can't really like outbuild that. Like you can only run so fast. So I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I haven't heard much about that aspect of Fortnite, at least on Twitter or anything.
I've been run over a few times in Warzone, and there's nothing you could do, especially if they have a trophy system to stop the explosives. You just kind of have to, you got to embrace that moment.
Right. Which does bring us into our first topic of the day. As we talk about esports, we have a new segment on DGN called the ESPORTS Roundup. And every Monday, we'll be going over, the esports events of the weekends, what you should know, any highlights, any cool wins that happened.
That is right. So starting off is one of our newest observations within the esports roundup information is talking about no surprise, which is League of Legends, as Team Liquid took down TSM to finish the regular season with their best overall record with 15 wins and secured second place for Cloud9.
And the 2020 LCS Summer Split standings at the end of the regular season are: in first place, Team Liquid; second, Cloud9; third, FlyQuest; fourth, TSM; five, Golden Guardians; six, Evil Geniuses; 700 Thieves; eight, Dignitas; nine, CLG; and 10th, Immortals.
And the 2020 LCS Summer Playoffs bracket will actually begin this Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with the Golden Guardians versus TSM.
I love how we're talking about wins, and Waffle says lots of big L's this weekend. There are more L's than wins. I mean, with so many teams in each tournament. With Overwatch, the San Francisco Shock are the OWL 2020 North American Countdown Cup champions.
So the Overwatch League Countdown Cup peaked at 75,000 on YouTube. I thought it was really interesting that Slasher felt like he needed to tweet about that when that occurred. And the Countdown Cup is the start of the countdown towards the Overwatch League postseason. All 20 teams will be vying for crucial wins ahead of the playoffs, which is set to kick off in September.
And with Valorant news, the FaZe Clan Valorant Invitational wrapped up just yesterday with 16 teams competing. TSM beat Sentinels 3-2 in the grand final, with the last match ending 14-12 in overtime, which was really hype. If you go to the FaZe Clan, Twitch channel, the VODs are really popping. I recommend that you check that out.
I always think if you're going to watch an event like that, something that goes into OT, you get your money's worth. You're more excited as a viewer, because if you ever just watch a situation where someone just runs through another team, you're like, all right, I'm going to check out at the halfway mark because there's no way they're coming back. Yeah.
No, not at all. So it was super cool. There were way more tournaments. When I was looking into Valorant, there were like 3 different Valorant tournaments that happened over the weekend, one of them being in Japan, a lot of teams doing different things. I find it very difficult to follow all the esports that's happening. So this
is pretty tough.
It is. It's pretty tough. So this segment is as much for, all of you watching as it is for myself to try to really get a handle on what's happening. Some of this information we pulled is from ESPN. There's some esports, websites, but I still find that they're not very presented in a way that's just easy to understand everything that's going on, or what are the most important events that happen.
That's a great observation, because I think one of the things that could benefit from esports is taking that, the page out of the ESPN playbook and having its own ESPN Twitter, just basically be like, they make it a place where ESPN has to use their content in order to cover the content. I think that would be strong because you're right. It shouldn't be that difficult to congregate all that information and be able to then share it or at least digest it.
Right. And even on the ESPN website, they have a tab for like CSGO or Valorant or whatever. But when you click on it, it just tells you like the team rosters. It didn't like come up with the latest news. And I'm like, I'm here for the latest news. Yeah. And if you click
highlights,
on the main page,
like a highlight reel.
Highlights, highlight reels, most exciting things. Yeah. KAISA'S finding a solution to it will be money or just a lot of work that maybe a lot of ambitious gaming people could take on.
That's true. Maybe under that DGN umbrella. So if you're out there and you're interested, talk to us. We are interested too.
Also, before I forget, we're also introducing a new segment called Mailbag, or at least that's the stand-in title for now. So you do !mailbag in the chat. It'll bring up a form if you want to submit any topics, questions, anything you want us to cover. That is the place to do it.
That is right, because we have been paying attention. We know people drop in. A lot of times they'll comment on stuff that they either want to hear us talk about or would like to, get some feedback on. So use Mailbag as a way to throw that information. We'll have an area that we can pull it from and start covering your requests, you wonderful DGN family.
So our first big topic of the day is Microsoft's new Xbox Series S console was confirmed in leaked controller packaging.
Wait a second. Hold on. You have the Series X is coming out. Isn't that right?
The Series X is coming out, and so Xbox wanted to make it more confusing by releasing a new Xbox console that's going to be, I think, the light version of the X called the S because that makes sense intuitively to everyone.
XS. This is going to be very easy to figure out what console you want and how you want your console. Microsoft, what are you doing?
I don't know.
Oh my God. So let's just dive into this information because when it was just read out loud, I was like S, X, man.
Yeah.
What a day to work at Microsoft. Oh my God.
So Microsoft is rumored to be unveiling its second, cheaper next-gen Xbox console this month, and it looks like it will definitely be called the Xbox Series S, and I already trip over Xbox Series X, so this is going to be great for me. The Verge has obtained photos of Microsoft's new next-gen Xbox controller in white, complete with packaging that mentions the Xbox Series S. Twitter user Zach S. was able to purchase the controller, and The Verge has confirmed that it's genuine.
Yeah, so the new controller was sold on a resale site yesterday, and the site on the side of the packaging actually notes that the controller will work with both the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S consoles. Microsoft has not officially unveiled an Xbox Series S yet, nor has the company even confirmed a white Xbox Series X controller. I feel like that's how I've got to be very, very clear.
Meg says XS, this isn't an iPhone. Also confusing, like this isn't the Xbox 10. Like when they say X, that's not what they're denoting. It doesn't seem what a mess. So a mysterious white Xbox Series X controller also appeared online last month, complete with a new D-pad, textured triggers, and a new share button. This new leak matches the previous controller leak, and retail packaging suggests that these could be appearing in stores soon.
So the Xbox Series S will likely be Microsoft's second cheaper next-gen Xbox, and that's been codenamed Lockhart. A Microsoft document leaked back in June, it sheds some further light on the company's plans for two next-gen consoles. Microsoft's Xbox Series X dev kit, codenamed Dante, allows game developers to enable a special Lockhart mode that has a profile of the performance that Microsoft wants to hit with this second console.
The Lockhart console is expected to include 7.5 gigabytes of usable RAM, around 4 teraflops of GPU performance, and ship with the same CPU found on the Xbox Series X. Microsoft is rumored to be unveiling the Xbox Series S sometime in August this month, and it will likely play a big part of the company's Xbox All Access subscription plans that bundle an Xbox console and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is Xbox Live and Xbox Game Pass, for a monthly fee.
I think with knowing that the PlayStation 5 is going to have 2 consoles, we know there's the digital edition and there's not. We shouldn't be surprised at the fact that we're getting, another console from Microsoft with the next gen. I think the surprising aspect is them unknowingly or knowingly making it more difficult to keep up with their identity of their products.
Right? I feel like I've heard rumors of the Xbox Series S for a while, but and it was kind of anticipated that there's going to be kind of a light version of the Xbox Series X. I don't know how this got out. It seems like someone bought this from a secondhand or like a resale kind of company. I don't know how this controller was able to just be sold. I am so confused with the name, and also when we talk about Xbox All Access, that's talking about Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is Xbox Live and Xbox Game Pass, and there's also the Xbox X Cloud that there's just their branding is just so out of hand at this point. I mean, if you live, breathe, eat, sleep Xbox, this is gonna be really easy for you. But as Kane says, you're just give me Cyberpunk and a PlayStation 5. It's just so much to keep up with.
It really is. And if what's interesting for me is it's I can say, well, which version of the PlayStation 5 do you want? Do you want the digital edition or do you want the regular edition, right? Mm-hmm. When I say, do you want the Xbox Series S or do you want the Xbox Series X, I think there's a chance to have a massive amount of confusion. Wait, was it the S or the X that has I can just think of anybody working in retail when someone steps in to want to, work with the different consoles and see maybe the difference in the choice. It just goes back to what you were saying before and something that it made me think of is they just need a marketing overhaul. They just need someone to come in, make changes and shift, because again, time and time again, we talk about Microsoft. We know how big they were for gaming, but just right now, it's just kind of, it just feel it all. I don't want to say it's purposeful, but it's starting to feel that way because this is it's so well written of a comedy. I feel like there's someone behind controlling the narrative.
Trying to write a sitcom about Xbox a la Silicon Valley style, because I think this might be a good topic to tackle. You made a good point that with the PlayStation, it's built into the name that it's the PS5 digital edition. That's all you need to know. Versus that, what is the S, what is the X? I can already see boomer parents, bless your heart, or boomer grandparents, trying to buy this for their grandkids and not knowing what the difference is. And it doesn't.
I got you the One X. No. Right? The Series X, what's your difference?
It's all the same thing. And even though the S is not going to be as powerful as the X, it seems like they're pretty comparable if the CPU is the same. So that makes me wonder how what is the difference? Is the how much worse is it going to play, or if it's not at all, maybe it's just the memory on there. That's not really made clear either. Whereas the PS5 is just digital edition or normal version. It's not there's a PS5 and there's a worse PS5.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, Sony's just understood that. They've been very good at their awareness. I want to believe that the Series S and Series X is the same situation of the digital edition versus the the Blu-ray edition. If it turns out to be that the console is not as powerful, I think that's going to probably upset some people, because the digital edition of PlayStation, from what we understand, is it's just whether or not you want your games digitally or you still want to be able to have your discs, that there's no other difference in terms of hardware. So this might actually be something that I'm hoping we find out very soon. Does them calling it a new name mean you're getting a downgraded version? It's like the difference of buying a gaming PC that has a 2080 Super versus a 2060. It's which video card am I getting here? And Now that will determine whether or not I buy this version or that version.
And this is just so confusing for consumers. At least this controller works on both the X and the S. I don't know if it works on the Xbox One. I don't know if it'll be compatible. I would like to assume so, but we know with the Dual Sense controller, that's for newer games, it's for PS5 games, and the Dual Shock isn't compatible with that. So I don't know if normal controllers or the Xbox One controllers are going to be able to be used with the Xbox Series X. We haven't really heard a clear answer on that, and I'd like to assume that it is, but it seems like with these, with these next gen upgrades, we really have to make sure that we have the right facts before going out and buying anything.
Yeah, for sure. And couple comments there that I understand completely. Like, yeah, this was planned information to be released. Still, including that they're just kind of missing the mark on clear marketing, it seems. And then for me, with Kane's question regarding, digital or not, honestly, like, I consume a lot of my games now digitally, but I still like having the option of the disc, especially on consoles, maybe for like special edition games that come out at some point. So depending on what my budget is, if I want to save the extra 100 and throw it in towards something, like a controller or whatever, I'm indifferent, but I would be happy to go either way and just allow, what my finances are at that point to make the investment, make that decision.
Personally, I'm all about digital. I don't even have a disk drive on my PC.
Oh, wow.
I haven't had a disk drive for the 3 years that I've had it. Before that, my laptop was a MacBook Air, so didn't have a disk drive there either. I've been diskless for years, so I'm all about the digital.
All about the digital. Well, we will be keeping our eye on more hardcore information surrounding the Series S and what exactly that entails, if there is a difference, how much of that difference should affect consumers, gauging on which console they're going to get. So make sure to tune in here to DGN for more surrounding the Xbox Series S reveal.
Our next topic is something that was leaked on Twitter early this morning or late last night, depending on your sleep schedule, on your time zone. And there's been murmurs about this online. Forbes has also revealed, an additional reason for this. So the news is Twitch Prime will be changing its name to Prime Gaming, and it's likely for one major unspoken reason, which is cloud gaming.
So one of the things that we need to take into account here is there was a leak, so there might be some misinformation there, but finally we're getting more information as to what is going on. So it was early this morning or late last night. It was Rod Slasher Breslau, leaker extraordinaire. He was sent an embargoed packet of information from a Twitch partner about a brand name change, where Twitch Prime will henceforth be known as Prime Gaming.
The large brand guidebook talks its way through what is now Prime Gaming, which really does not seem at all that much different from Twitch Prime, and this change does appear to be mostly cosmetic. But the overall emphasis is to bring the service more in line with other offerings like Prime Video and Prime Music, both in terms of their names, but also focus on things like free games people get to keep or opportunities for free in-game content in games, which already exists through Twitch Prime.
So while, yes, this does seem to be to streamline the brand across Prime Video and Prime Music, Paul Tassi from Forbes thinks that the main reason for the change is something that has not happened yet. It is the arrival of Amazon's game streaming service, which will use AWS to stream games directly to devices like Google Stadia and Microsoft xCloud, exactly like those devices are doing now. And when that does arrive, Tassi believes it will be firmly under the Prime Gaming banner.
The problem is that for now, the service, codenamed Project Tempo, has been delayed. It was originally supposed to either debut or at least be announced by this fall, but the last we heard about it back in April 2020 was that it has been delayed until sometime in 2021 via a New York Times article that spotlighted that Amazon was making games, not just streaming them, highlighting titles like Crucible and New Worlds.
One of the other things that we also learned is that Amazon has had a very tough time breaking into the gaming world outside of acquiring Twitch and its market share. We've talked about Crucible, which was such a disaster that the game took the unprecedented step of going back into a closed beta after it debuted, and simply nobody showed up. We also know of New World, which is an MMO, which we're excited about, but isn't out yet. And that was actually supposed to launch in 2 weeks. But now it's been delayed till spring of 2021. And the game has changed directions so many times, it's hard to know where it stands now. And of course, for most of us, this just doesn't look terribly promising.
But game streaming is something Amazon should, in theory, be able to do well with all its infrastructure. However, the game streaming market has yet to really emerge. By game streaming, we mean cloud gaming, as something substantial and viable. Google Stadia has struggled to make much of an impact since its debut, with a limited catalog of games and a limited use case for when game streaming is really necessary. Microsoft's xCloud seems like it has the potential to find more success, given that it's attached to Game Pass and the Xbox ecosystem. But Project Tempo and Prime Gaming will be more like Stadia with nothing backing it up. Google has started crafting first-party studios to make exclusive Stadia games to make the service more attractive, which I don't think will work very well personally. But this is something, as mentioned, that Amazon has already tried, and Amazon hasn't been doing a great job creating its own games so far.
So yes, for now, Prime Gaming will be announced mainly as a rebrand of Twitch Prime. We would expect Amazon to continue to expand its gaming ambitions no matter what setbacks it faces. And Prime Gaming a year from now could be very different than what it was just this afternoon.
Chat asks, do I have to pay extra for Twitch Prime? No. So if you have Amazon Prime, you have Twitch Prime if you link your Twitch account to your Amazon account. But this move also kind of makes me think that maybe you will have to pay for certain things. I know for Amazon Prime, you can watch Prime Video, but there are some titles that you have to pay an additional amount to rent in order to be able to see that aren't included with the service. I think this move makes a lot of sense personally. I mean, people using Amazon won't know what Twitch Prime is. A lot of people still don't know what, Twitch is at all. I think, changing it to Prime Gaming is actually a pretty good move.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, because this makes sense even just for paying attention to what Amazon is already doing, what aspects of the industry they're moving into. I think it's of no shock that once they moved into film and television, that we see them move right into gaming. They have huge amounts of money going into their games and development. It would make sense that they want to ensure that that investment reaps its return, and if not a entirely, hopefully exponential profit in their mindset, that they would want to house it under one roof. This is just a choice that maybe we're going to start to see a little bit more of. As we know, we've been talking about like exclusive content. That's been a conversation. We might start to see these platforms really start to kind of like gatekeep their sources, though they want all these users.
Right, I think so. I wonder how they're going to approach, Project Tempo, because with Twitch, Amazon has such a massive, base of gamers that a lot of other companies don't have. And, a reason why I think Facebook gaming is so successful and YouTube streaming is so successful is because of that already built-in user base. And, Amazon has that through Twitch. I wonder if they're going to be launching it as kind of a separate thing, similar to their games like Crucible didn't really have anything to do with Twitch as far as I've seen, or I don't see any,
no
buzz
relation,
about New World. No relation at all. It's completely different. And I'm like, why don't you use the thing you acquired that has all the gamers on it?
Yeah, that sounds like a question from somebody who's a gamer and can pay attention to business, when it just might be you have people who are too focused on business and don't know much about gaming in these positions and these decision maker positions. Thank you so much for the tip, Kai. Really
thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, this whole situation, it makes sense from a business perspective, but then you sit back and you go, well, I'm a gamer first. It's how I got into this industry. It's why I'm passionate about the industry, because I loved the content that I was consuming. I hope they stick the landing. I really hope that they don't try to maybe do like one of our later stories is try to change the gaming industry or fight back to what is the way in which the gaming industry works. What Valve did with Steam and how they approached that whole process was a very like open door. There wasn't like a situation of this is a Valve place only kind of approach. Twitch is a place where all gamers and all people passionate about gaming or some form of entertainment that is related to that subject or surrounds that subject. There's a lot of, you can see passion on Twitch directly correlated with gaming. So if you're gonna have Prime Gaming, it shouldn't lose that focus at any point, and become something that it's not, or just become something that we as gamers feel is inauthentic. Because then it's like, well, I don't choose to use Prime Gaming because all I'm getting is Amazon games or Amazon game focused content, and I don't want that. I want to be able to have, a slew of that, like they currently have for Twitch Prime, when you have like Rocket League and Destiny and all those other games that pair up with Twitch Prime.
Right. I wonder, what direction it's really going to go in. We've seen some, minor changes from Twitch and how it approaches games. For the Twitch PC app, there's a section of mods where you can actually download and update like all your World of Warcraft mods or whatever mods for whatever games. But not a lot of people know about that feature. And for some diehards that use it, I think it's going to be quietly removed. And it makes me wonder what direction they're going to take with Prime Gaming. Is it going to be mostly Amazon games in it? Are there going to be things behind a paywall? I also agree with what you said, that there's not necessarily a reason to go against the flow or work against the tide here. I feel like maybe they're trying to disrupt the industry, because like just disrupting things is like a big entrepreneur buzzword, but it's
That's
like
true. It is.
It's like a lot of disruptions work because there was a need that wasn't filled by the market, and a new app might come in and fill that need. But right here, I have my cloud gaming needs filled by the market. I don't see, why Amazon cloud gaming might work, better or be more successful. We've already seen that a big problem with cloud gaming right now is that the internet infrastructure isn't really there, at least in the States, that if I want to play something on my phone or computer, the connection just isn't fast enough to have a good experience, unless it's maybe, a less frame rate heavy game. So maybe this is a good project. I think cloud gaming is going to be successful in the future, but I don't think the infrastructure is there right now to really support it. Kind of a side note about how this, news was released. I think Ninja retweeted Slasher and did a question mark, and a lot of people were kind of going after him for leaking this information. And he stated that he's not a Twitch partner. He didn't sign an NDA. Like, him leaking this information, he wasn't under contract to keep this information secret. Again, which kind of goes back to the conversation of like, is it ethical to leak information like this? Does it really just not matter to him because he's not under the contract? And also, who are all the people that leak him all of this information?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, where does it come from? Who is it? Who's involved? There's obviously someone probably trying to look into that, figure that out. But what isn't happening is denial of this information. And in fact, it's now being just like, yes, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to go forward. Someone threw up the quote, which was the same name, more benefits, more great benefits. Guff threw that up in the chat.
New name,
more great benefits, right? And part of me is like, when I hear that, I'm like, but that doesn't indicate the same. Like, when I take away from that, I don't take away that I'm getting the same service necessarily, and that might be just kind of the approach that they're taking, is like, hey, here's what's new. It's a new name, and we are still going to give you great benefits, but those great benefits are only going to be under the Amazon gaming umbrella. I'm not saying that is what the case is currently, but we're talking about what it could be in the future. A year from now, it could be drastically different. And we shouldn't be surprised if that does happen. And if that is the case and you're unhappy, tweet it, post about it, share it. Like, let your voice be heard on this kind of stuff, because the more we see this happen, this could become kind of like the new wave within business. And I'll be honest, it's kind of the same thing that I'm a little upset by when thinking about the Marvel's Avengers kind of situation, is like, once you start to like paywall content, or you start to block people out from having access to the content because they're not coming through, your entrance, so to speak, and paying your fee in order to access it, it just starts to rub people the wrong way. And it looks like you're more focused on how much money can you make than are you providing us with quality content.
Right. It really does. I wonder, how I guess valuable this is going to be. When I think of Twitch Prime, I think of a free sub. I think of League of Legends skins that I get, and I think that's it for what I use it
Yeah.
for Twitch. Other people might use it for games or other in-game perks, but you know, I've been thinking of maybe, you know, canceling my Prime subscription, which I originally got only to keep more VODs on Twitch, because I would rather just pay $5 a month for an additional sub a month versus, you know, paying this like yearly $60 fee or whatever. I wonder how much value it's going to add. Putting things behind a paywall, I think in this case, I don't know if that's going to be a good move. If you need to have, you know, Prime Gaming in order to use Tempo, I assume you're going to have to pay for that service. But what if I already have Game Pass and I, you know, already have my cloud gaming, you know, on Xbox? I don't need to also have it on Amazon. There's a lot of variables. Maybe they're just going to also, you know, keep the games exclusive, so you can only play this game on Stadia, you can only play this game on Tempo, which I think is even more of a struggle because it's going beyond, you know, kind of the console exclusivity wars of needing a Switch to play Nintendo games or a PS5 to play those exclusives. Now, you know, if some games are also going to be behind a paywall on cloud gaming, I feel like that just adds kind of another hurdle for gamers to play the games they want to play.
That's so true, and like you said early on, that is very important. Is especially here in the States and in some of the other places. Once the internet infrastructure is ready to handle cloud gaming at its fullest and at which would bring it to its finest, I think these are things that, you know, will become the hot topic of conversation. But I am a little hesitant to be like cloud gaming is the future, and it's like, guys, you're talking about technology that just isn't gonna work because we can't actually, we don't have a foundation of hardware underneath it to be able to handle this, you know. So I hope it doesn't go like the ways of like early virtual reality, which didn't really stick its landing because the hardware at the time didn't really work. I mean, if you think about something like Virtua Boy that Nintendo got behind, they were going into this, how do we make gaming, you know, more immersive, and how do we get into this kind of place? This is a parallel of what you hope they don't do. Is if you go to it too soon, it'll turn people off, and you've got 10, 15 years before you can get people's interest again. Otherwise, it's like, no, cloud gaming, it didn't work. You're going to have to wait a little while before you can prove it can work.
I think so. It might take that long. Hopefully not. But, you know, even now with a lot of VR, people go like, VR is cool, but it makes me feel sick. And that's kind of, you know, that's all they say. I was in a stream yesterday, and that's kind of what the conclusion was of like, oh, like cool if it worked, but it doesn't really work yet. And
people walk away with that memory of the first experience. Yeah.
And, you know, it will be another, you know, how many years before they're willing to actually spend the at least $400 on a VR set. I don't have much interest in cloud gaming because I've tried Stadia and it was just kind of fine. Like, I didn't really see any great benefit, and that, you know, is going to deter me from trying other cloud gaming services, and I think a lot of consumers as well. So I also, you know, I think they're kind of jumping the gun here, but we'll check back in 10 years to see how cloud gaming works out.
And the one thing that I'll say too is to Kai's point that just popped up there is actually 5G internet should be the solution for cloud gaming based on what we believe that hardware can allow us to become capable of with our internet use. But there is still a concern, the fact of how old our lines are in the ground, how many people, how we don't have fiber everywhere, the cost in the States, just a lot of different stuff in that regard that we could probably do like a big deep dive into, you know, current internet infrastructure, what is ahead for us, what it looks like in different parts of the world, what it could look like everywhere, and how 5G could benefit something like cloud gaming. So this could just actually have led us into the birth of a deep dive coming up here on DGN.
Let's do a deep dive on that. Stay tuned, because I think it is important. It really does have, you know, a big effect on gaming, whether it's downloading games, you know, cloud gaming. It really matters.
Absolutely.
So our next topic is another follow-up to the Riot Games Neom controversy, as Riot Games is to establish a global deals council and an ethics committee.
Yeah, so Riot Games will establish this global deals council and an ethics committee following an internal and external controversy around a partnership it previously struck with Neom, which was a Saudi Arabian state-backed city development And the company told employees on a company-wide call Thursday about this new venture.
So the establishment of the Global Deals Council will come with a new internal deal tracker that will provide company-wide transparency for all business development and sponsorship deals occurring in Riot's global operation. The council will feature representatives from the global esports team, Riot's social impact division, Karma, and its legal and diversity and inclusion teams. The council will answer to Riot's Senior Vice President Mark Sotosanti and Head of Corporate and Business Development Brian Cho.
Riot President Dylan Hada said that the intent is for all of us to have a voice to raise a flag and for that to be followed through on. That team, that department, will be responsible for formalizing and reinforcing the deal evaluation framework.
The separate ethics committee comes after the company consulted with its board of directors and outside advisors. Hada told employees that the committee will be involved in evaluating deals, discussing company direction and philosophy, and evaluating relationships the company holds with its global partners, including countries in which it operates.
So he goes on to, actually, a Riot spokesperson, Joe Hickson, goes on to say this: "We're not going to comment on specifics of an internal conversation. We are in the process of reevaluating our internal processes to make sure that nothing like this happens again."
On a call last Thursday, Riot CEO Nicolas Laurent and members of his executive team apologized for breakdowns in communication and processes that led to many rioters across the globe feeling upset and unheard. Laurent also restated his desire to push Riot's presence everywhere across the globe, including in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, and outlined the process in which the Neom deal was constructed.
Laurent went also to discuss that the importance of Riot working with government entities, citing its relationship with the Chinese government was a core reason that it was able to hold the 2020 League of Legends World Championship in October in a bubble akin to the NBA and NHL in Shanghai despite the coronavirus pandemic.
Waffle says this is a roadmap for a roadmap. That reminds me of Star Citizen, of like, we have a plan of when we're going to tell you the plan.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's like, here's our blueprint of the blueprint. Yeah, I think they're just trying to immediately get out and address this flack that they got right away. And on one hand, I agree. It's the right choice. On the other, I do recognize this whole approach is like, okay, well, actually start showing us a real plan versus talking about a plan.
Yeah, Riot doesn't have a great track record of avoiding controversy. I mean, there's a whole controversy around, how Riot Games treated women as well, and, harassment in the workplace and how that was being addressed, if it was being addressed. I think this is a good step in the right direction to, establish a global deals council and an ethics committee, because reading about the process of, how the Neom deal came to be, it was kind of just like, oh, we want to expand into Saudi Arabia. Okay. Hey, this person can recommend that. Okay, let's do a deal. Cool. And that was kind of the extent of it. It was just, very business minded.
Hey, they've got lots of money. Oh, cool. Great.
Yeah. Instead of really considering the ramifications of, being homosexual is punishable by death, over there. And, a lot of writers or a lot of people who, play the game or work in casting or, a part of, the pro League of Legends esports scene, have a problem with that, as they should, because, that's really kind of a, like, how are they supposed to go over there to cast an event, sometime in the future? It just really goes against, what they stand for and what they think Riot should stand for. Yeah. I hope this actually has an effect. I hope this committee, actually, I heard that static noise too. I don't know what that was. I hope that has an effect. I hope, in the future, we won't see any bad deals like Neom go through because of this committee.
Yeah, that's something that I was thinking about, was like, this should be one of those moments where we learn, maybe just because someone has access to a lot of money doesn't mean they should be the priority decision. Because like you said, what are the ramifications that come with making that decision? What is the potential public backlash that you could get? Does it taint your image overall? And that's something that we've seen. There was a point, and a parallel to this is Electronic Arts for a while early on wasn't perceived as this terrible place. And it would have, hit after hit after hit. But there kind of came this point once it became so public knowledge that a lot of electronic arts was dicey and there were things going on and the people weren't treated right. That image began to fall, and that money, that the aspect of the amount of people consuming from electronic arts also began to dwindle. So, there's a situation going on here where I don't want to see Riot go through that same journey. I don't want to see them make these decisions and have these things that surround them affect their long term because of these almost poor short term decisions. Because they're not thinking about stuff like this. Like, how does our community possibly feel about this? And we should take what their interests are first, then go from there.
Their short-term decisions do, have an influence on their long-term public perception. As Chad said, like, oh, Riot has so much controversy because in the past, they have made some mistakes and we haven't really seen, how far they've actually gone to correct that. Thank you so much for the bits, by the way, Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, this is really important. It has an effect. It means a lot to gamers. I mean, I was considering, not playing League of Legends anymore because of that move, and I'm glad they walked back on it, but it still, kind of worries me for the future of Riot Games and for, this kind of aggressive business expansion and, what that means for, the morals and ethics of the company, what your money supports, because if you're, spending money on skins on this game, then you might be supporting some country with whatever regime that you don't agree with sometime in the future, which, isn't part of your agenda as a gamer.
No, and that on a completely different conversation is something that I have issue with in my own life, of knowing that I might be giving money somewhere and that money might be going to a place that I don't necessarily agree with. Once you learn more about that, I mean, it's it's unfortunate that Riot's in hot water again, or having another moment of being like, what are you guys doing over there? You know what I mean? Like, who's okay with this? Somebody didn't do some research. Yeah. They've got to dodge that negative public reaction for some time. And hopefully this coming out and saying, hey, we've got this plan, we're going to put these things in place. If they're as aggressive as they move with the Neom choice on this, we might actually see that shift happen a lot quicker.
That's a great point. Our next topic is about more exclusivity, kind of the theme of the day.
Yeah, that is, isn't it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, all the news today is an extension of stories we've been covering, and I'm like, a lot of it's not necessarily good news. So TechCrunch came out with an article headlined "Apple Goes to War with the Gaming Industry."
It's a big title when you think about it, but as we break down this information and we address what's going on and the things that we've been talking about surrounding this, you'll get where TechCrunch is coming from. So we've been following that escalation of the gaming world's feud with Apple. TechCrunch published an article that headlined as what Kaisa was saying, Apple goes to war with the gaming industry. And there are some updates about how this saga is unfolding, including Facebook Gaming's new app and Apple's history with microtransactions.
So most gamers, such as myself, may not view Apple as a games company to the same degree that, I might see Sony with PlayStation or Microsoft with Xbox, but the iPhone maker continues to uniformly drive the industry with decisions made in the Apple App Store. And
the company made the news a couple of times late this week for App Store approvals. Once for denying a gaming app and the other for approving one.
So the denial was Microsoft's xCloud gaming app, something the Xbox folks weren't too psyched about. xCloud is one of Xbox's most substantial software platforms in quite some time, allowing gamers to live stream titles from the cloud and play theoretically console quality games across a number of devices. It's a huge effort that's been in preview. It's likely going to launch next month. And the app has been in a test flight preview for iOS, but as Microsoft looked to push it to primetime, Apple said, not so fast.
So the app that was approved was the Facebook gaming app, which Facebook has now been trying to shove through the App Store for months to no avail. It was at last approved Friday after the company stripped one of its two central features, which is a library of playable mobile games. In a curt statement, the New York Times Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg said, "Unfortunately, we have to remove gameplay functionality entirely in order to get Apple's approval on the standalone Facebook gaming app."
So you're telling me that there's a Facebook gaming app with no games on it?
That's what it sounds like, doesn't it?
It does. So Microsoft's Xbox team then took the unusually aggressive step of calling out Apple in a statement that reads in part, quote, "Apple stands alone as the only general purpose platform to deny consumers from cloud gaming and game subscription services like Game Pass, and it consistently treats gaming apps differently, applying more lenient rules to non-gaming apps even when they include interactive content."
Last year, when Apple Arcade was launched, Apple COO Tim Cook proudly proclaimed that the iOS is the world's largest gaming platform. I couldn't even get that sentence out because it's just not true. Apple likes to play at its own pace, and all of these game streaming platforms popping up at the same time seem poised to overwhelm them.
There are a few things about cloud gaming apps that seem at odds with some of App Store's rules, yet these rules are, of course, just guidelines written by Apple. For Apple's part, they pretty much said that the App Store had curators for a reason, and that approving apps like these means they can't individually review apps, which compromises the App Store experience.
So to say that's the reason seems disingenuous, because the company has long approved platforms to operate on the App Store without stamping approval on the individual pieces of content that can be accessed. With games representing the App Store's most popular category, Apple likely cares much more about keeping their own money straight.
An analysis from CNBC pinned Apple's 2019 App Store total revenue at $50 billion. And I think it's still wild that Tim Cook said that, Apple is the world, or that iOS is the world's largest gaming platform. I don't know, maybe that's just the category of game apps or the App Store, but that just seems like a pretty big statement that doesn't sit quite well with me.
No, because most of the bigger App Store developers have spats played in the background, and they have come to light later. But at this point, the Xbox team undoubtedly sees that Apple isn't poised all that well to wage an App Store war in the midst of an increased antitrust attention over a cause that seems wholly focused on maintaining their edge in monetizing the games consumers play on their Apple screens.
Tim Cook spent an awful lot of time in his congressional Zoom room answering questions about perceived anti-competitiveness on the company's application storefront.
Apple's driver's seat position in the gaming world has been far from a wholly positive influence for the industry. Apple has acted as a gatekeeper, but the fact is plenty of the innovations pushed through as a result of the App Store policies have been great for Apple, but questionable for the development of a gamer-friendly games industry.
Apple facilitated the advent of free-to-play games by pushing in-app purchases, which have been abused recklessly over the years, as studios have been irresistibly pushed to structure their titles around principles of addiction. Mobile gaming has been one of the more insane areas of Wild West startup growth over the past decade, and Apple's mechanics for fueling quick transactions inside these titles have moved fast and broken things.
And we can just take a look at the 200 top grossing games in the App Store, and this was actually done through Sensor Tower to compile this data. And what we'll see is that all 199 of them rely solely on in-app microtransactions to reach that status. Microsoft's Minecraft ranked 50th, costs from $6.99 to download, though it offers in-app purchases.
And in 2013, the company settled a class action lawsuit that kicked off after parents sued Apple for making it too easy for kids to make in-app purchases. In 2014, Apple settled a case with the FTC over the same mechanism for $32 million. This year, a lawsuit filed against Apple questioned the legality of loot box in-app purchases, which gave gamers randomized digital awards.
And the most recent lawsuit filing reads as this: through the games it sells and offers for free to consumers through its App Store, Apple engages in predatory practices enticing consumers, including children to engage in gambling and similar addictive conduct in violation of this and other laws that are designed to protect consumers and to prohibit such practices.
This, of course, is not how Apple sees its role in the gaming industry. In a statement to Business Insider responding to the company's denial of Microsoft's xCloud, Apple laid out its messaging, which states the App Store was created to be a safe and trusted place for customers to discover and download apps, and a great business opportunity for all developers. Before they go on our store, all apps are reviewed against the same set of guidelines that are intended to protect customers and provide a fair and level playing field to developers.
Our customers enjoy great apps and games from millions of developers, and gaming services can absolutely launch on the App Store as long as they follow the same set of guidelines applicable to all developers, including submitting games individually for review and appearing in charts and search. In addition to the App Store, developers can choose to reach all iPhone and iPad users over the web through Safari and other browsers on the App Store, and that's where the information ends.
The impact has quite obviously not been uniformly negative, but Apple has seemingly played fast and loose with industry changes when they benefit the mothership. We won't act like plenty of Sony and Microsoft's actions over the years haven't offered similar affronts to gamers, but Apple exercises the industry-wide sway it holds, operating the world's largest gaming platform, which I'd like to look into to be like, is it really? Is it? And gamers should be cautious in trusting, the App Store owner to make decisions that have their best interests at heart.
Yeah. This is very much, when you go back to the title of TechCrunch saying Apple goes to war with the gaming industry, is what it does seem like they're warring on is a gamer-friendly aspect to the gaming industry, very much like what we were talking about with concern of the future of something like Twitch Prime, or even the Neom controversy. You kind of see these little steps in a direction that you go, well, what is the potential outcome of this? And it just seems like Apple is really not on the side of developers and gamers.
It's not. And, it kind of made me take a second look at mobile gaming, and maybe why I think mobile gaming is so spammy is because the App Store and Apple have allowed it to be so spammy because, they allow for these loot boxes and these microtransactions. A lot of people using the App Store are children. And it's, I remember, back around this era of, I think when, the class action lawsuit was all over the news, that there was a lot of fuss around, kids spending thousands of dollars, on their iPads or on their whatever phones, on their parents' phones, because they could just spend money because it was so fun to spend money, because it is like gambling to spend money. And I think that's really kind of put a bad name on mobile gaming, because when I think of mobile gaming, I do think of a lot of ads. I do think of a lot of microtransactions and an experience that isn't, best for the consumer.
Yeah, when you talk about it like that, and part of the whole conversation that I think we had a little while back with separating the money from actual currency but giving it a different name helps detach the person from that moment of transaction, which is gambling. And that is a predatory practice when you don't really understand that. It's a way of sugarcoating the experience, but it also, when it's so easy to do and it just doesn't feel like it has the severity to it that it actually does, you do take the amount of children that are using these devices, and it's very easy for them to make those decisions and unfortunately grow this potential addiction, or desensitized to this way of behaving with gaming, which is not something we want. We don't want the gaming industry to grow into this negative public persona where it's like, most of your users are fighting a gambling addiction because they've just gotten so used to it because all these predatory practices have ruined it for everyone else. That's something we should avoid, and we're kind of seeing it now. Like, I think that's what's happening, is we're paying attention, and we're having those moments of being like, oh, it shouldn't be like this because it could have a really negative future. Let's make sure to address this immediately and get it out now before we get 10 years down the road and are like, oh God, what did we do?
I hate how Apple thinks it's the biggest gaming platform because it just seems so different, and I feel like it just holds back gaming if, more mainstream people or non-gamers, they think gaming is, like playing Candy Crush on your phone, which I don't mean to, regulate who can be called a gamer or not. Like you can be called, you play a video game, you're a gamer. But I just mean that I don't want people to think that all gaming is, you know, these like quick little games, these microtransactions, these loot boxes, you know, that games are just super spammy things, you know, that I feel like that makes the gaming industry look really bad. It makes it look like a money grab, you know, versus being, you know, versus providing good content and good storytelling. And it's, sure, Apple can have Apple Arcade, but if those games are just going to be kind of those quick games for children, that holds back a lot of gamers because, you know, maybe a lot of iPhone users who might be adults or might be teenagers, they want something more than just like quick, simple mobile games and actually want a full experience. And I think this just adds to the stigma that, you know, gaming isn't something a lot of people are interested in.
Yeah, this is that echo of concern where Apple themselves are acting like what they're doing doesn't have we shouldn't have this reaction. It's this choice that they're making, and they're shaping their actions in this way that are just kind of like, this is okay. And you have enough people going, well, this isn't, and here's why. And instead of changing their policies, because the majority of people who are looking at your policies are saying this is questionable and this doesn't help, and in fact, there's a lot of danger to this, and saying, you know what, we should evaluate this, have an internal investigation, talk about it publicly. No, they're continuing to dismiss it, and they're continuing to put forward their narrative that this is the way we do things. We're the biggest gaming platform. We have all these choices. Like it doesn't sit right with people, and it shouldn't. And that's why you have entities like TechCrunch and Verge, Forbes, all these different places that may have gaming subgenres of their media are going to the forefront and saying, we need to talk about this stuff because it has a larger ripple effect than we actually know it. Because we can see how this has actually worked in other industries, not just gaming, and where this unfortunately has a negative outcome.
It does, and I'm glad they kind of called out, you know, the congressional hearing, because my main takeaway from that was all of these companies are trying to have a monopoly, and this is kind of a big antitrust thing. They, you know, with business, with a lot of business and how it works, especially if you're a publicly traded company, you just try to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and acquire more and more and more, and kind of you're on a path to, you know, having a monopoly. And you know, they're asking like, where does the line end? And you know, to these companies, they might be like, well, we have to keep growing because that's what our shareholders want, and that's what the market wants. And they're kind of in this, you know, in between a rock and a hard place, not trying to defend, you know, these tech companies that are often very predatory, but you know, they're like, who are we supposed to answer to? Like, what's in my best interest? And it seems like right now their best interest is still, you know, growing, is still money, is still, you know, denying or demanding exclusivity by denying, you know, other parties to come in and use their platform. The App Store does seem to be very you know, anti xCloud, anti, you know, Facebook gaming, anti other gaming platforms, which is strange because it's weird to me that they're calling themselves, you know, very trusted and very reputable, because there's a lot of like random like dumb little apps on there with a bunch of microtransactions, with a bunch of ads, and to that, like, that doesn't, you know, scream quality to me. Meanwhile, these hopefully quality apps, you know, from Microsoft and Facebook, you know, aren't being able to go through.
All I'm thinking of is Microsoft's choice to cut the testing with iOS. All I'm thinking of is Microsoft coming out and addressing the controversy themselves as a major player in, you know, business. I mean, Microsoft is huge. They themselves are calling out these choices by Apple, who you would say is a competitor. And in doing so, what this kind of creates, and I like that it creates this, is it almost creates this, instead of everyone's doing this thing and no one's calling each other out and trying to hold each other accountable, we're now calling it out and trying to hold each other accountable, which what it allows is the everyday consumer to hear this information, to be aware of what's going on. So hopefully they get somewhat informed of these predatory, you said it, and I was like, I don't want to call it this, but it is this monopolistic practices. I mean, that is the truth here. Like, We didn't allow these things in the United States. We fought this. We went and removed this from happening because we recognized the long-term damage from it. The more we talk about this, the more we address this, people become aware and hopefully recognize the power they have with their bank accounts and go, no, I'm going to switch my cell phone over to one that doesn't do stuff like this. No, I'm not going to do Apple Arcade. No, I'm not going to do anything on iOS. I mean, hopefully that is what is the result of this kind of conversation. But I think we're going to be hearing more and more of these big players and these bigger media entities calling this stuff out.
I think we will, and I hope so. I think it's good that they call each other out and, hold each other accountable and, call it as they see it, that, this is unfair, that something needs to be done about this. Apple has, people have tried to sue Apple a bunch because of, the gambling and the microtransactions. And, these are issues that I think do need to address, moving forwards.
Call a spade a spade.
Call a spade a spade.
Do it.
To tease some of our next stories for our next show, the Batman game reveal date has been reportedly leaked.
Yes, this was juicy, was excited, but we had a lot of, I like what you said about today's. Today's was like a controversial day within gaming, covering a lot of this information. We're also going to be talking about that Sony's State of Play revealed information regarding Godfall, which is that game that's going to be coming out alongside the PlayStation 5, and talked about the combat, as well as how the DualSense will actually work in detail.
We'll touch on how Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment is reportedly not for sale anymore, which is a big update because there was a lot of buzz about that.
There is. And if you're a huge fan of Remedy, they've been around for a while. We know Alan Wake. We know Control. And it has been confirmed that a new game in the Remedy connected universe is already in the works.
So make sure you tune in tomorrow because we will be live from 1 to 2 p.m. We'll also have our VODs up. We'll be posting our VODs on YouTube. If you're watching a VOD, we are live. Again, that is 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time every weekday.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Another amazing week ahead of us for gaming industry news here on Daily Gaming News. This is not possible without all of you amazing people, a part of the DGN family. So if you are checking out our VOD on YouTube or on Twitch later on, thank you so much for watching and be a part of this, following us, subscribing, and just continuing to help us thrive. We couldn't do this without you. I know I say that all the time, but I mean that. You are important and you are valuable.
We mean it. And to make our show even more interactive, again, we're doing a user submitted segment, exclamation point mailbag. That command's also going to work when we're offline. So come to the chat, write exclamation point mailbag, all one word. If you want to submit a topic, a question, or any feedback you have, if you're like, hey, you haven't talked about like this game, or you haven't talked about this console in a while, like this is something I'd want you to answer on the show, please let us know and submit through the form.
Absolutely. I think this is an amazing idea to hear from you guys, get some cool creative content to add to this and talk about. Even if you have an idea of like a segment, as we're doing the esports roundup and we have on This Day in Gaming on Throwback Thursdays, if you have something like that, hey, we're willing to wheelhouse it and try it out, because again, this is just one of those amazing processes that, just like it is in the gaming industry, everybody involved is important and is priceless.
I love it. Get ready for PS5 questions.
Here they come. At us. Bring it on.
Please do. Thank you so much for the bits as well, Squirrel.
Thank you, Squirrel.
But it does bring us to the end of the news for today. We will be running reruns right after this. If you want to stick around, hang out, catch any news that you might have missed.
But for Daily Gaming News, we are out of here today and back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am Marrone.
I am Kaisa. Thank you so much, and we'll be seeing you all tomorrow.
See you next time, everybody.